皆さん、こんばんは。こんばんは in English is good evening. Konbanwa is a Japanese or Nihongo expression that means good evening. So, minasan, konbanwa. Vince this. This is Vince. Kyou wa mata bunpo kankei 関係のことを皆さんに紹介していきます。For this today's episode or this evening, I will be introducing to you another bunpo kankei or grammar related concept. So today's topic is Japanese sentence order. Japanese sentence order or order of things. So let's try to cover this topic. では皆さん始めましょう。Let's begin. So before we start with the pattern or sentence order proper, hey, you probably saw this. This one is on our previous lesson, the keiyoku or phrases or clauses that are acting as adjective to modify nouns. Actually, in this sentence, the simple form for this without this keiyoku is a person went to the bank or shito wa ginko ni itta. But with the presence of this keiyoku, the one in orange colored font, we have seen how this keiyoku have modified well our noun. This keiyoku acting as adjective modifies shito, person. This keiyoku or phrase acting as adjective modifies ginko or bank. The result is you have created this kind of sentence. Ban gohan wo tabenakatta hito wa eigo de mitta ginko ni itta. Ban gohan wo tabenakatta hito wa eigo de mitta ginko ni itta. Or in English, person who did not eat dinner went to the bank that she saw at movie. What kind of bank did she went to? What kind of bank? The bank that she saw in the movie. Eiga de mita. Very well. That's a refresher for our previous lesson about keiyoku or phrase or clauses acting as adjective to modify nouns. But today, Japanese sentence order, we start with vocabulary. You already know this. The one in brackets, the readings. The rightmost part, the English translation. The leftmost part is the Japanese word or Japanese writing. Watashi, me, koen, park, obento, a lunch or a meal in a box form. Obento. Taberu, an ichidan verb or aru verb meaning to eat. Gakusei, student. Iku is an intransitive verb and a godan verb or yu verb meaning to go. Okay. Now that we've learned the concept of relative clauses and how they are being used as building blocks to make sentences, we can go over now how Japanese sentence ordering works. There's this myth that keeps floating around about Japanese sentence order and it continues to plague many beginners to Japanese language. Here's how it goes. So, in English, do you remember in your English lessons, you have the STV subject verb object, or I have already discussed this minasan in our Nihongo lesson 0020 that discusses about the wo particle, or wo or o. A sentence is not grammatically correct if any of those elements are missing out. That's in English. That's in an English grammar standpoint. But in Japanese, it's not usually the case. In Japanese, even some Japanese teacher might tell you that the basic Japanese sentence order, basic Japanese sentence order is just subject, and actually oftentimes the subject is omitted. Subject, object, or verb. This object is the direct object. Let me give you some recall on this. We have a recall lesson here. If you remember the Nihongo lesson 0020, and specifically on the part that we were discussing the particle wo, and then I gave you a refresher about this English grammar sentence pattern STVIODO, which means subject, transitive verb, indirect object, direct object. Now, what is this IO, indirect object? Indirect object is the beneficiary of the result of doing the action that is through the transitive verb. What is DO? Direct object. DO, or direct object, is a direct object is the noun. Direct object is the noun or a phrase type of noun unto which the transitive verb is either done to, or the transitive verb is done onto, or the transitive verb is done onto. Let's say you hammered the nail. Hammered is the transitive verb, and the direct object is the nail. Okay, example of an STVIODO sentence pattern. Recall our English lessons. John gave money to his brother. John is the subject. Gave is the transitive verb. Money is the direct object. And brother is the indirect object, being the beneficiary of that action, beneficiary of the action being done. So the brother is the indirect object. So when we translate this sentence in Japanese, this is ototo. This is younger brother. Younger brother is ototo. Ototo. Ototo no tame, for the sake of his or her brother, ototo no tame, John ga okane o watashita. Ototo no tame, John ga okane wo watashita. This is the in case you're having problems with the kanji readings. These are the kana writings for that sentence. This is the kana writings. Again, ototo no tame, Jan ga okane wo watashita. I have already discussed that this particle nga usually it signifies that the noun that is right on the noun that is on its left side, John, indicates the doer of the subject. So in this sentence, the doer of the subject, the one who does the transitive verb, the doer of the subject is John, and the okane or money, okane, is the direct object. watashita is the transitive verb. And the beneficiary or indirect object is his younger brother, ototo. See? So actually in this part of lesson, we're in Nihongo lesson 0020. We just went through that and we realized that the wo particle is the one that is goes between the transitive verb and the direct object. So I want you to digest that this kind of refresher, because this is very much related to our current lesson here. So actually that's the what I have shown you is actually the concise form, the concise form or the simplified form of this wordings here. The object here is the direct object. Well, even some Japanese might tell you that the basic Japanese sentence order is just subject, direct object, and verb. This is a classic example of trying to fit Japanese into English. Well, actually, as an advice, I do not think I do not encourage you to think this way, that you can translate word per word Japanese English, vice versa. But of course, when you translate by thought, you translate by context, because in Japanese sentence construction, you need to unlearn some things that you have learned in your English. Well, just screenshot this. Anything else that comes before the verb doesn't have to come in any particular order, and nothing more than the verb or main verb is required to complete the sentence. This is in Japanese sentence sense. In addition, the verb must always come at the end. Yeah, the main verb rather must always come at the end. That's the whole point of even having particles, so that they can identify what grammatical function a word serves, no matter the order. In fact, nothing will stop you from making a sentence with this kind of order: direct object, subject, verb, or just simply direct object and verb. The following sentences are still complete and correct because the verb is found at the end of the sentence. Now let's go for some examples here. Minasan, what is example in Japanese? Example sentence is reibun. I will put that in the description box. What is example sentence? Reibun. Okay. Sentence number one. 私は公園でお弁当を食べた. Very correct. This is a complete sentence. 私は公園でお弁当を食べた. Let's translate this in English. As for me, because watashi wa, as for me, in a park, kouen de, in a park, obento wo tabeta. The obento, I ate the obento at the park. Again, recall our lesson for the particle de. The particle de answers the question, in what manner was the action done, or in what kind of place was the action done? In what kind of place? Kouen or park. Kouen, park. In what kind of place was the tabeta action done? Kouen. Watashi wa kouen de obento wo tabeta. So a classic example of a transitive verb is usually paired with the particle wo, and this is the direct object. The tabeta action is done unto the obento. And this watashi wa is translated as for me. And then sentence number 2. 公園で私はお弁当を食べた. Still correct. 公園で私はお弁当を食べた. In a park, as for me, I ate the obento. Still correct. Now, sentence number 3 is a bit confusing, but it probably ought to have a comma here after the obento. After the obento, wo. The wo is when you try in conversational form, this wo is o. Sounds like o. Obento watashi wa kouen de tabeta. Obento watashi wa kouen de tabeta. I have a note on that sentence number 3. Okay, sentence number 3 is easier to understand with the help of a comma. Obento wo. And then you follow it with the descriptive clause, just like what you saw. Follow it with the descriptive clause or descriptive type of sentence. You describe the topic. Putting wo at the right side of a noun or compound noun, it has a meaning. It means that a certain action, usually a transitive verb, is expected to be done, or ought to be done, or recommended to be done on the object, on the direct object of that particular noun or object. In this example, obento is the object or direct object. The main verb in sentence number 3 is eat, taberu, or specifically tabeta. Past tense of taberu, tabeta. So see, but actually no one will condemn you if you decided not to put a comma here, but for others to simply to make it more understandable here, especially for beginners, we ought to place a comma here after the particle wo. Obento wo watashi wa kouen de tabeta. And then we have a truncated or shortened sentences here that are still correct. Sentence 4 and 5 still correct. Bento wo tabeta. Bento wo tabeta. See? Shortened. But actually, in Japanese, because they are reticent people, and reticence is a virtue for many Japanese, they like to do implied state of being or implied way of SLVC sentence pattern. Remember the subject linking verb complement sentence pattern in English, but in Japanese they tend to shorten that kind of sentence, and that concept is called the implied state of being, because the state of being is actually SLVC in your traditional English language. So just like here, sentence 4, sentence 5, bento wo tabeta, still correct. But this implies that obviously a subject most likely is watashi or I, bento wo tabeta. And probably the speaker opted not to disclose in what kind of place did he or she ate the obento. And the shortest one among the 5 sentences here, tabeta. Tabeta. Very short. This is still implied state of being, implied or shortened way of SLVC sentence pattern. Tabeta. I have a note on here. Sentence 5 is still valid. Although taberu, tabeta is a transitive verb and not an intransitive verb, which usually creates super short sentences. You will notice in your quest in study of Japanese that usually these intransitive verbs create short sentences. But actually, there are some transitive verbs like that one here that uses implied state of being. They are also capable of creating short sentences. Okay, because of the reticence of many Japanese people, they tend to abbreviate words and even omit words that can be omitted without compromising the context of that sentence or clause. That is called reticence. Reticence or brevity. Brevity, being concise. You can understand their words by means of context, and of course by context, by thought, and of course by common sense. By common sense. Japanese speaker expects that the person they talk to has common sense or able to decipher the invisible subject or invisible second person. So by context and by thought, Japanese people communicate, and it's okay with them. They can understand it. So it really needs some common sense here. So Japanese people tend to be reticent, and they like abbreviations. They like to abbreviate. So it's understandable. And it's an accepted practice in Japan. Okay. So don't sweat over whether your sentence. So don't sweat over regarding the correct order of sentence. Just remember the following rules. Cheat sheet or summary. Japanese sentence order, summary. Let's summarize here. A complete sentence requires a main verb. Remember minasan, a complete sentence requires a main verb. In a certain sentence, there's always a main verb. It requires a main verb that almost always comes at the end. This also includes the implied state of being, just like this. Examples of implied state of being, very short sentences, tabeta or gakse, with the notion that there's already a particle or nominalization or confirmatory sentence ender da. Just like if you recall our Nihongo lesson 006 and Nihongo lesson 008. The particle da is a declaration sentence order. Okay, or verb to be. In other textbooks, the da is called verb to be, or sentence ender, declaration nominalization particle da or des. And second point, complete sentences or relative clauses can be used to modify nouns, just like what we have run through our previous lesson, the keiyoku, the phrases or clauses acting as adjectives to modify nouns, to make our sentences with nested relative clauses, except, and this should be done, or except this should not be done in the case of the, except in the case of the. In clauses that includes the, or phrases that includes the, should not be used as adjectives to modify noun. So just like what we have discussed in our Nihongo lesson, I think 0024, keiyoku. Keiyoku are phrases or clauses acting as adjectives that modify noun or compound noun. Example, obento wo tabeta gakusei ga koe ni ita. Actually, the simple sentence here, let's first omit the orange part, because the orange part here is the keiyoku. The orange part here is the phrase or clause acting as adjective. Acting as adjective, it modifies what noun? Gakusei. Gakusei is student. So let's first read this without the kyoku. The simple sentence is, because ita is an intransitive verb that I have already told you that usually the intransitive verb goes in pair with the particle ga. So the iku past tense ita, this is a transitive verb usually paired with ga. So, and who went to the park? Let's identify who went to the park. Ga is an identifier particle. Gakusei ga koen ni itta. And ni is a target particle. When he went, what is the target place? Koen. So ni is a target particle. The target of his act going into a certain place, that target is the koen or park. So again, gakusei ga koen ni itta. But this is a simple sentence. Gakusei ga koen ni itta. Let's try to nest this sentence with a relative clause. We nest this sentence by, let's decorate it with the phrase type of adjective, kyoku. So the simple sentence will now be lengthened into or modified into obento wo tabeta gakusei ga koen ni itta. Again, the orange part is the kyoku or the phrase acting as adjective. That is the orange part. So again, obento wo tabeta gakusei ga koen ni itta. In English, the student who ate lunch went to the park. Student who ate lunch went to the park. Okay, so in our next lesson, I will teach you how to enumerate nouns. And let's further explore the usage of the particle no. Remember, minasan, particle no is a very powerful particle, a very useful, a very powerful particle with lots of uses. But that will be on our next grammar related lesson. We will learn how to enumerate nouns in series. But as for now, this is as far as we go. So minasan, 最後まで見てもらえたありがとう。ご視聴くださりありがとうございました。Thank you for watching until the end. So また次の動画で。So we'll see you at the next video. また次の動画で。多分来週。Probably next week. また次の動画で。もう一度 again ご視聴くださりありがとうございました。Thank you for watching until the end. And we'll see you in the next. ではみんな、バイバイ。またね。